Yeah, beauty. Yeah, so ChatGPT, man, it is wild. You should definitely check it out.
Have a look.
Yeah. Anyway, we're listening to What's Your Voyage. I'm your host, Hamish McLaughlin-Lester. We got Biora Gil, co-host and production.
Hello.
And then we have the one, the only, the man that is an all-time Hall of Famer for Adelaide United, the greatest goal scorer.
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
Craig Goodwin.
Oh, well, shout out to Craig.
Shout out to
Wikipedia
Craig.
update.
Yeah.
And then also was the director of football, moved on to Committee of Adelaide as the CEO, and is now starting a new journey with the South Australian Property Council.
Yep.
We got Bruce Djite.
Yep.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the ultra kind intro.
That's all right, man. I mean, you've been doing cool stuff.
Been busy.
So did it start off as like soccer was just your dream?
Yeah. So when I reckon I was 6, we went to the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire. That's in West Africa, where my dad's from.
Yep.
Went to school there and stuff. We were there for probably about 3 months before returning to Sydney, which is sort of where I grew up. And everyone was playing this game. And I felt like I got 2 brothers and stuff, but if you want to make mates at school, then sport is a great... it's a great vehicle to break down barriers, et cetera, et cetera. So if these people are playing before school, at recess, at lunch, after school, I'm like, well,
fair enough.
when in Rome, get involved.
Get it done.
Even as a 6-year-old. So just started there, as you can imagine, just on the street, in the playground, et cetera. But by the time I was about, and then obviously returned back to Sydney, but by the time I was about 8, that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah, okay.
I got an 8-year-old son now, and I look back at when I was 8. Like, if my son was so obsessed with something as an 8-year-old, I think it was a bit weird. But at the time, like, I thought it was completely normal just to be so passionate, so obsessed, loved training, took it real serious, all of that stuff, even as an 8-year-old. So yeah, that's how it started, and it's all I ever wanted to really do, actually. Till I got a bit older.
That's pretty cool. And then it's like in terms of like actually becoming like, I guess, a sports star, if you will, or a professional player, and going around the world and all of that, like what did you find was like the moment where it was like, okay, I could go and just continue this as something that's a hobby, and then, or I could actually go and take this serious, like, and take it to that next level. Like where was that in your life for you?
Probably when I was 8.
Real?
Yeah. I was full on.
And you just kept it going the whole way and just kept getting better and better and better and better and better.
Yep.
And you didn't like stagnate at any point?
Nah.
You get distracted?
You see a lot of people fall off the edges. Players much more talented than I. You get to 15, 16, 17. You think missing the house party on the weekends like the end of the world and all that sort of stuff. And
did you have any of that?
No. Because I can't come. But, don't get me wrong, a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah.
Like you miss a lot of stuff.
But you weren't mad about it. You were like, nah, I'm about it.
No, I was mad. Like, you think it's a big deal at the time.
Yeah, okay.
But I always took a longer term view. Sort of, you can go to a social thing every weekend. Do you know what I mean? You only get one shot at this. So, and as you see people... especially in those teenage years, when you're in year 10, 11, 12, when you see those people who are like amazing when we were like 12, 13, 14, they start to fall by the wayside or they just get tired. It's not for everyone, It was their dream, it now is no longer, or their parents were really pushy and they just ended up resenting the game or got distracted with the social element of a teenager's life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That actually helps keep you on the straight and narrow if it's still what you want to do. As you get a bit older, you're like, I don't want to end up like that guy. Do you know what I mean? So that was always, I was always real focused on being a footballer. Like I said, if my son was doing the same thing now, I think that was a bit weird. Like, try something else, or are you interested in anything else?
Yeah, how were your parents about it?
Yeah, they're very laissez-faire, sort of, for like most migrants, school and good academic results and all that sort of stuff was by far and away the most important for them.
And you were getting all those done?
Not particular. I was the kid that was like, the report card would always come back, if he concentrated, he would fulfill his potential. I was that guy.
Dude, that's literally my report card.
Honestly.
Yeah, a whole of the school, they're like.
But it was always secondary. It's like by the time I was 14, I was training every night. Training wasn't nearby. So, Sydney's a big city. It's an hour each way. By the time you get home, you're not doing your homework. You pick it up tomorrow sometime. And you always fall a little bit behind on that sort of stuff. I was a smart kid. So I picked up things quickly in that sense.
Like a street
So
smart.
my marks were good.
Yeah.
But they could have been heaps better.
Yeah, fair.
But at the end of the day, I had to focus on something, and I could always come back and do the study later, which is ultimately what I did. But, you can't come back and do the sport later. And that's sort of how I approached it.
I sort of resonate with that as well. When I was playing basketball, I had a lot of things going on, but I still had a lot of effort put into training, training always came first, but you also knew you had a lot of responsibilities. So it's all mental for me back then.
And I think adults are often very easy at limiting what the capacity of a child is, whether they're 10, 8, 18, 16, doesn't matter the age. That's too much for them, or they can't do both.
Dude, that's so true.
Yeah.
It's generally like the parent can't be bothered.
You got kids all around the world, like on construction sites, like getting work done. While that's, not necessarily okay, they're still doing it.
I think the capacity for children is phenomenal, and more often than not, they're limited by the adults thinking they know what's best, rather than let them go to the limit. They'll tell you when they're tired.
Yeah, true.
So within reason, of course, but yeah, I think, like you said, Bior, you can do multiple things at once. I had all my eggs in one basket, definitely, but it ended up paying off. So no regrets.
That's it.
Yeah, sounds like it. And then when did you, what was the first team you started playing for professionally?
Adelaide United.
Yeah, okay.
First professional contract was here, and that's when the love affair started with the club. Right, still going. Probably go to the day I die. Definitely will. But yeah, first club game, my first opportunity. I'm not from here.
Yeah, you're from Sydney, right?
Yes, but even the fans and everything, and the South Australian public in general, really, I felt like, they really adopted me and welcomed me, and everyone was really warm down here, and forever grateful. Always tried to pay it back.
How do you go about engaging with fans in your time? What does that actually look like as a sport person?
Yeah, just be humble, have time for everyone. I think it's important that anyone you interact with on the phone, in person, wherever, when you're spending time with people, they're the most important people at that particular time. And it's important that people feel that way, that you're legitimately engaged. And don't get me wrong, fans can be great, fans can be really critical. They've got the right, as people who've got emotional and financial skin in the game, whether they're members and et cetera.
Sports bet.
The real fans, who are just there to support the team, support the players. I loved the community aspect of being a professional sports person, going and speaking at schools, or helping out the disadvantaged, or signing autographs after a game, or just talking to kids and stuff. I mean, I go to random places now, you got to fill up your car with petrol, and people will be like, oh man, you won't remember me, but when I was 7, you took a photo with me, or someone's parent will say, oh, my son really loved football, and, we always thought no one would have time to come and chat to us, but you actually came and chatted to my son, signed his shirt, kicked the ball with him. I've still got the photo in my phone. Look, let me take a photo with you, and I can then show him when I get home, or show her when I get home if it was a little girl, and stuff like that. So I'm so happy I was that patient type that really enjoyed that sort of interaction, because those interactions today, even though some might have happened 7, 8, 10 years ago, like it was massive for those guys. Like for me, it's just like,
You're just going about your day.
just going about my day, like it's not a big deal. I always understood it comes with the territory type thing, just like I'm a fan of other people. And you know, it'd be great to meet some people, and if I met them, you know, I'd love for them to sign a jersey and give me a jersey or whatever. So it's very easy for me to put myself in those other people's shoes, and it's important to treat everyone with respect.
Yeah, fair enough. I think everybody should take that on board. I remember hearing about, who was it from? Someone we had on the podcast. They went away with this cricketer, and they were just so shocked that this like famous cricketer over in India had time for everybody. And like in India, when it's, you know, the streets are packed like no other, and he was just signing autographs and just being like this jovial human and just giving everybody time. And it makes people's lives.
It does make people's lives, and I was never that famous, so trust me, I didn't have to be that patient or
even
had
it's Adelaide, right?
that many people you know, courting my attention or anything like that. But I've seen the scale of it, right? Like during my time in the Socceroos team, where you had your Vidukas, Lucas Neals, Harry Kuehls, Timmy Cahills, Mark Schwartz's, like those superstar players, like that's what they were, like that was another level. And the patience and humility that they showed was really great to see, because it was like, you're nowhere near as good as them, and look how they go about their business. You know, there's no reason, and you can have a bad game, or you know, something terrible's happened or whatever. That's never a fan's fault, and you should always, regardless of whatever the outcome of the game was, etc., you should always give them the time.
It sounds like it takes a lot of patience.
A little bit.
Yeah, swallow your pride a bit when you're feeling stroppy.
Swallow your yeah. I don't know if you got to swallow your pride, but you know, it's football.
Yeah,
you have good games, you have bad games, you win, you lose, you draw sometimes.
Yeah, fair.
That's part and parcel.
You went over to Turkey, didn't you?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So Turkish club interested in signing me, had to sign a transfer fee, a little bit of negotiation there, club to club.
Yeah, okay. Between Adelaide United.
Yep. And Gençlerbirliği in Turkey. And then that was agreed. Then they came to me. We agreed personal terms. And that was that. I mean, that's a real summary and summation of the situation. Agents involved and all that sort of stuff, obviously, as well. We were playing Asian Champions League, I remember. So we were in China. We were meant to play the game. Then I was meant to fly out. There was a really bad earthquake in China.
Oh,
game got cancelled. Yeah,
huge one.
2008.
Yeah, okay.
Huge.
Yeah. I think I remember watching
Tens of
videos
thousands
of it.
People died, I reckon. Yeah. They had a national day of mourning, maybe more than a day. Anyway, the game was delayed. I was flying from China straight to Turkey to check the city out, the club, meet all the people. So that game got delayed, got played in the end. We drew, qualified for the knockout stages. I flew straight out. Club were keen for me to stay at the time, but for me it was an opportunity like that I couldn't say no to. Went over there, club was great. Ended up signing over there, and I can't remember, it might have been May, June 2008, I reckon. I moved over there by myself, 21-year-old.
Yeah. What was that like?
Off to Ankara in Turkey. It was good. It was different, but
What's Turkey like? I've never been. I've been to Greece. Is it similar to Greece?
I don't know. You clearly don't understand the geopolitics between those two countries. But what I'd say is Turkey was a great country for football. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Fans are fanatic, passionate. It's all about football, that country. So to have that experience was really good. very volatile. I reckon I had 3 coaches in my first season.
Cool.
Yeah. Lose a few games, bang, coach is out. So very volatile, especially as a 21-year-old still, finding their path, learning their trade, needing game time consistently. That was a major challenge. There were a number of Aussies in Turkey at the time, which was really good. And during my 2 years there is when I was heavily involved with the national team. So every month you're going away for qualifiers or international friendlies. So that was really good to get back amongst Aussies.
Yeah.
Generally in Dubai, if not back here in Australia. So yeah, that was a really awesome period, I reckon. Really fun, traveling all the time, sort of jet set. It's what you dream of as a kid. I'm going to be this footballer. I'm going to play in a European competition. I'm going to play for the national team, be involved with the national team. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be in a national team with the caliber of players we had at that time. So yeah, it was really positive, man. Like I really enjoyed that period in Turkey. Learned a lot. Food, culture. I think it's important to immerse yourself.
100%.
Wherever you're at. Very easy to live in Ankara, which is the capital, where there's heaps of diplomats, there's heaps of foreigners.
Yeah, and just live like you're at home.
And you just live like amongst the expat community and not really get a sense of the country. I always avoided that. Yes, you meet a lot of expats, but there's a quota of how many foreigners you can have in the team. I think it was 8 at the time. So the squad's probably about 35 people. Overwhelming majority are Turks, which was great. So you have to learn the language, understand their culture and all that sort of stuff. Muslim country, obviously, different religion. Call to prayer 5 times a day, mosques everywhere.
Did you get around that? Like yourself? Like, did you go, I'll pray with you guys and stuff like that?
Oh, no, I don't think it's quite like that. But I did go to the mosque.
Yeah.
Not often, but there were a couple of times, where the boys were like, just come with us, I'm like, yeah, cool. Where else am I going to go? So I did that from time to time. I'm not overly religious anyway. So they were just happy that a foreigner was respecting their culture and being a part of it and all that sort of stuff. And for me, it was a great learning experience and just sort of to understand what it's all about. So yeah, real good life aside from the football and all the cool stuff that we got to do and everything else, but just general life experience, learning, understanding why they think the way they do, why they feel certain ways about different things.
What's some insights you found that were different to like how you experience life?
I'd always seen a real broad spectrum. So like we lived in Australia. All our schooling was in Australia essentially. Australian values, Australian cultures, etc. But we were born in the States, had family in France, a lot of family in Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo. I travelled so often with like junior national teams, New South Wales Institute of Sport, Australian Institute of Sport. So I think I'd already been through 2 passports by the time I was 22. So I actually ended up getting a passport with double the pages. You can get 64-page ones because you just burn through the 32-page ones. You're on the plane that often. So nothing was really a shock to me. And football's such a multicultural sport. One of my best mates, even till this day, Tariq Elrich, was Muslim. And he'd bring the food to camps and all that sort of stuff. So, and he was my roomie. He'd pray 5 times a day. Like, nothing was a shock to me.
It's not a shock because you're like, that's just how he lives his life and you're understanding.
And now I'm just surrounded by a whole heap of people who live that same way. So nothing was a shock. You get used to the call to prayer. I think that's a thing that, like, when you get there, and there's that many mosques, you can't be somewhere and not hear it, right?
Yeah, because they have that big
it's a call to prayer, right? Yeah. So it's not like here, where if you live near a church, you might hear the bells ring every hour. It's like no. It'd be like hearing those bells. Like doesn't whether you're at home, whether you're at work, whatever you're doing at that time. There's that many that you can't not be somewhere where you don't hear it. That was something I need to adapt to.
So being like a heavily religious country.
Yeah, it is, and a lot of countries still are, to be honest. But driving on the other side of the road also was a material change to me.
Did it take you long to get used to that? I found it not too bad.
Their driving is not like here.
No.
It's much more laissez-faire.
Yeah, a bit more like Indonesia or Vietnam.
Yeah, lived in Indonesia as well. Maybe a bit less laissez-faire than Indonesia. A bit more rigid in Turkey, but a lot more laissez-faire than here. And that was something I was wary of, especially early on, because you don't want to have a car crash or something like that.
Yeah.
And I frequently saw car crashes, like actually happening. I don't think I've ever seen a car crash live while I was driving in Australia, ever. But there, I saw a number of them. Like, they were really frequent.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I saw a terrible car crash the other day on the way down to Victor. Someone like full banged into a tree.
Live?
Yeah, or I saw like
Or you saw the car
wreckage,
in the tree?
The full wreckage, yeah.
I'm saying live. Like, whoa, I think they're going to...
No, I've seen a hit, but I haven't seen like a big one.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a
That's
big
a good
one
thing.
like that. Oh, it is a good thing. I think that would be traumatic as hell, especially if you like jaws of lifing someone out of a car. Like, fuck that.
Yeah, I know. And, well, generally just drive past unless it's like right there and you're going to stop and help. Obviously, a number of people do that, but yeah, it's not something you want to see.
Yeah, fair. And where else did you go to any other international teams?
Yes, I played in a number of countries. So also played in China.
Real?
Played in China. I was in Nanjing.
Where's that?
Is about an hour west of Shanghai.
Yeah, okay, so more south.
Used to be the capital of China once upon a time. Really nice city. Well organised. Quite developed.
What are your thoughts on China
can be
now? Like,
in what sense?
well, just like I found that was so different when I went there, and that the surveillance state was very clear. Like you're driving through an intersection, it's flashing every single car, and you're like, oh wow,
yeah,
it's you know,
yeah.
I'm seeing right now. That's for sure.
Yeah. And you know what? It's probably the same here. Not at that level.
Not yet.
But you'd be very surprised how surveyed you are here anyway. That's why when these COVID apps and stuff came about, people were like, oh, they're just trying to sell. I'm like, buddy, you use Google? Use a bank card? You're being surveyed, buddy. You got Facebook? Come on, please.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it is on another level when it's in the data's in the state's hands, though.
That's right, and that's where you start to see the clear differences. Don't get me, and let's not be mistaken. I mean, it's a very authoritarian, regime there. It's not going to change, but if you look at it, on the whole, it's actually served them pretty well. I mean, what they've done in the last 30 odd years, the amount of people they lifted out of poverty, et cetera, there's a, whether it's sustainable in the longer term, yet to be determined, but the economic transformation of that country, and with that, the power and influence it now has in the global world order, you see now. The China of 20 years ago, where people were just like, let's just open up a factory in China and get it made in China, is a very different beast now. But living there was enjoyable. It was good. Very orderly. Things work well. I lived a bit more of an expat type life there.
A bit harder to like integrate with local.
Much harder to integrate. Everyone stared at me because I was black.
Yeah.
Like, obviously very censored, but very censored.
What do you mean? Like, what kind of censorship did you kind of witness?
Well, people don't know about some historical events.
Yeah, like Tiananmen Square.
Exactly.
Yeah. Were you like going around asking people like, hey, do you know about this?
There was once on the team bus, because we had about 3 or 4 players who played for China.
Yeah.
So they're out and about, right?
Yeah.
They're flying here, there, everywhere, international qualifiers, World Cup qualifiers. And I think we were in Beijing. No, sorry, we're in Shanghai. It was the anniversary, Tiananmen Square anniversary.
Mm.
I think it was a significant one as well. I mean, I can't remember, but a significant anniversary. And I was like, oh, that Tiananmen Square massacre? No, I don't know if that no one had heard of it.
Oh.
All the foreigners had.
Yeah, of course.
You could have 4 foreigners in China, right? So we had a Romanian, a Peruvian, 2 Aussies, myself included. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I'm like, are you joking? And I'm like, okay. There was probably 6, 7 Chinese players who could speak
good English,
reasonable English. I wouldn't say it was good. You could have a conversation.
Yeah.
Mate, no, what are you, like, this guy's crazy.
And did you explain it?
Are crazy.
Did you explain, like, this is what it was?
I'm like, I'll Google it. Nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I got a VPN.
Yeah.
I'll Google it.
Oh, I see.
Nowhere to be found.
What? Even with the VPN?
Bro, no, listen to me. Nowhere to
Next
be found.
level.
So that's what I mean when I say it's obviously censored. So even, I reckon Obama was the president at the time.
Mm.
And like, even then still, people would just stare at you, take photos with you. Not because they knew you played football.
No, because you're black.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it was weird.
That's happened to
it was weird.
That's happened to Aware Mabil when he first went to China. He told me about it.
Yeah.
They were like touching. He sent the photos. They were like touching his skin. Yeah.
Like they just can't believe it. It's weird
because it's censored.
Well, I don't know if it's because they're censored, but they obviously, there's
a cultural
It's
gap.
insular.
It's very
it's
more than
insular.
insular.
Yeah.
More
Well,
than.
it's just state control, right? You have a control on what truth is and what knowledge is. Well,
Everything.
then you control your people because
And they've done a good job at that.
they have done a pretty damn good job. Although, speaking of property and their property ain't doing too well right now.
Yeah, I know those. Your Evergrandes and stuff really set up. Well, they were really the canary in the coal mine, weren't there? And like I said, economically, phenomenal transformation over the last 30 odd years. Whether that can continue into the longer term, very, very. It's an experiment that has tended to fail in the past over time, but on what they're doing, you never know. They
I mean, have you seen all the uprising that's been happening? I don't know if
Over
it's
COVID?
still happening, but
over COVID, yeah, I think they quashed that pretty quick. But the fact that you even saw it
was a
that's
big deal. Yeah, well, I had a friend over there, a few
Big
friends
deal.
over there that were giving me the lowdown,
Yeah,
and it was like,
that's a big deal, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a huge deal that they were uprising.
and that's what I'm saying. Like, how sustainable is it? Time will tell.
People enjoy freedom. Like, life is the best when you're free.
That's
within.
It's easy for us to say. If you don't know any different, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, but still, I think your soul still knows that you're being oppressed in some way, shape, or form.
If you don't know, you don't. Trust me.
If a whole country is suppressed and they believe to be in a suppressive environment,
Look at North Korea, man.
Yeah, I mean, people are trying to escape there all the time, though, and they're literally like having their intestines falling out. They do think that the rest of the world's worse, so they think they've got it the best, but it doesn't mean they're like necessarily like, oh wow, this is so great.
No,
I don't know.
They have to be that it's. Well, did you see that Yao Ming Park? Have you seen that lady? So she's an escapee of North Korea.
Yeah.
And she goes in detail about what it was like being raised in North Korea, escaped when it was 13. She's like the creases in people's stomach, because they're so malnourished, split open and people are holding in their stomachs.
Yeah, it's a very... Look, I lived in South Korea for 2 years. At the time, Trump was president. He was calling Kim Jong-un,
Yeah, they were trying to do that
little
piece.
rocket man or whatever.
Oh, that bit, yeah.
North Korea was shooting ballistic missiles and testing them all the time. And people were texting me from back home like, "Are you okay? Are you safe? You better call the embassy. Blah blah blah. Is there an evacuation strategy?" And like no one in South Korea would even bat an eyelid.
No, this is the usual fucking Kim Jong-un doing his old antics again.
No one cared. They're like, you do know this is all a charade. Like, they've got no money, really poor, all those parades and stuff that they do, it's all staged. Like, they don't have enough resources to actually go to war in a meaningful way.
I mean, look at Russia. Russia's got way more money than them, and they're still getting cooked.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a different situation, but I definitely think the West is good at beating up stories, especially the media.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You live in these countries and you put on CNN, it's like breaking news, blah 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 blah, and
CNN's the worst.
It doesn't matter. CNN, BBC. What do you normally get in your hotel? You get CNN, you get BBC, you get Fox News, you get.
I sort of trust Algeria News. Is it?
Yeah, Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera, yeah, but I feel like they're getting infiltrated a little bit.
Everything's infiltrated. Don't worry, everything, and you can Cote d'Ivoire had a civil war.
What's Cote d'Ivoire? Where's
Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, West Africa, where my dad's from.
Yeah.
Civil war. I don't know whether that 2009, 10, around that time. Maybe 2010. Uprising, and French army went in, and the president was there. He won the election. The West considered that unconstitutional, so they went in and they took that president to The Hague and installed the other party or all this thing.
Gave him a healthy dose of freedom.
And you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then you go there and literally everyone you speak to is like, they took our president to The Hague.
Yeah.
Everyone. Like, without exaggeration. And you're like, oh, but I thought that, nah.
Happened in South Sudan.
That's just what the French wanted.
They just
took our president to The Hague. But if you're here, you'd be like, oh, that president, can you believe that? Like, and then you know what? He got off 2 years ago.
Do you remember the Coney 2012 propaganda thing? Coney 2012 when they made it. It was valid, but the story behind it, he wasn't a politician. He was a simple rebel. Had no ties to the government.
But that's what I mean. So when we say, the Chinese are influenced and they don't know anything because they're censored and da-da-da-da. North Korea, they don't know any better. And we also don't know any better, bro. Trust me.
Oh, for sure.
It's not the same. Don't get me wrong.
It's not the same.
We're not speaking about the same level, but very, very, very influenced by social media, mainstream media, and that's how you get these uprisings. And, it's 5G, it's COVID's fake, and vaccinations going up. Like, we are the same. Like, it's actually not funny. It's kind of scary that due to the proliferation of misinformation, people come to conclusions or decisions that are completely warped.
Yeah.
Yet, we are the first to be saying, like, oh yeah, but China's authoritarian state, it's terrible how they don't give people freedom. We are taught to feel that we have freedom.
Yes.
But do we?
Well, no, we're paying land tax. We have to rent our land that we buy.
Good. We can get to the property stuff, but on the media and the society and social media and its influence on individuals, groups, states, countries, it's significant. And
it's just different versions of social engineering, right?
It's just, that's exactly, mate, nail on the head.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. So
But we're still being socially engineered because they're trying to create a cohesive society, and there's just people are trying to do it in different ways, but it's still top-down approach. But
always.
there's always going to be billionaires and trillionaires
what's
doing
funny?
their thing.
And people say like, oh, but it's freedom, you know, I shouldn't have to get vaccinated with COVID. If you rewind 2-3 years, you know, when COVID was at its peak and
Dude.
we're going to protest and it's blah, blah, blah. It's like, so what did you think happened? Do you have to go to school if you're a kid? Yes. Do you have to get a license if you want to drive? Yep. Like, we have to follow so many rules.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yep.
what's one more?
Well, I think
they're overreaching. They're incredible.
No. There is a difference though. There is a difference because one's to certify that someone's like, you know, adequate to drive on a shared playing field, you know, on streets for a driver's license. Versus a vaccine, it was kind of like the last freedom of having your own bodily autonomy.
Nah.
We had that before. We had the right to choose what we do with our body. Medically, not medicinally or recreationally, because we're not allowed to warp our mind states.
No one was tying you down and vaccinating you. Like, you did not have to.
Yeah, but coercion is still a form.
But that's what I'm saying to you.
It's coercion.
But that's what I'm saying to you.
Yeah.
If you want to get your childcare benefits or welfare or whatever, family tax benefit, blah, 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 I'm pretty sure your kid has to have their blue book completed. So their course of vaccination.
That's a good example though, and that's when someone's reliant on the state.
Yeah, but
when
you don't have to.
No, but they're relying on the state.
Yeah,
right? That's their life.
Okay, so
if you're not relying on the state at all and you still were being forced, that is completely like you're not being like, I need the government. But unless you own your own business and you could choose how you wanted to go about it. But there was places you couldn't go. Like for example, you couldn't have private health insurance and then go to a private hospital. Or you couldn't go into a hospital. People were getting turned away.
But it's the same as, or you can compare it with, like, is having to have a license to drive a car coercion? Why can't we just all drive? It's the same.
So the school system.
It's just regulation, man.
It is regulation.
Yeah.
Everything's regulated.
Yeah. That doesn't mean people shouldn't have a say in the civil discourse of choosing regulation. Though.
Like everything, everyone always has a say. People protest things all the time. Soon you'll have the people protesting internet and 5G.
Yeah. Dude, 5G is just nowhere near as good as they cracked it out to be. I'm not going to lie. I was expecting way faster internet.
I agree.
Nothing happened, really.
Dude,
I agree.
I swear my internet's slower.
Soon we'll get 6G and it'll be the same.
Yeah. Well, what's the point? Just sell
Marketing.
new products.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how the chat GPT is it?
No, dude, that is pretty wild though. It's going to be interesting to see when like AI gets integrated with robots and you actually have like these little sentient robots.
You know what's
doing
going to
their
happen?
It's on the come up.
Regulation. I'll get regulated. Because when you don't, and then, like, we shoot ourselves in the foot. You don't regulate crypto. Look what's going on now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
FTX.
You don't regulate social media. Look at all the trauma that's causing.
They've started that. Apparently, they're trying to regulate TikTok now.
Yeah, I know, but the problem
India
is
banned it.
the problem is the regulators are always they're like the
worst.
they're like Asada or WADA, right? The people trying to catch the drug cheats.
Fair.
They're always 10 steps behind.
Yes. Yeah. It's true. Very slow moving vehicle.
Very slow, bureaucratic, slow. The crypto people, the drug makers or takers, they're always a step ahead.
So what's the solution, Bruce?
Don't know.
What's the solution, man?
People much smarter than me working on things like that.
What do you reckon that? Like, surely.
It's just human nature. It's human nature, some of this stuff.
Yeah. Do you think it just goes in cycles and we're going to have to see things crash and burn again before they like become to that more state of freedom? Or do you think we're just going to keep going into regulation and just being like...
Hard to say. It ebbs and flows. I think history repeats itself. Look back the last couple of thousand years.
That means we're going to go to war, boys.
You would have seen the same outcomes. So
Yeah, it could be the
there is a war.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Russia.
not a world war. It's like a silent world war because it's all proxy wars now.
There's always been that.
Yeah.
You had Syria. You have wars in Africa. You had Ukraine now. You had Afghanistan. You had Bosnia, Herzegovina. You had, like, man, there's wars all the time.
I feel like it's reached its peak now, all these proxy wars, and there may be an awakening of some sort.
I think it's hard. It's hard for us to say because we're not old enough.
Yeah.
So I feel that way.
Socially,
maybe
I guess.
in our short lifetime. But I was speaking to a really senior diplomat probably about 6 months ago. Older. And I'm like, you've been alive twice as long as I am. What's your take? Is it really that bad? Like, I don't believe anything the media says. Like, what's your professional take on it? And they said, it's been a long time since I've seen geopolitical tension this bad. Something's going to have to give it at some stage. And you can see it. Everyone's arming up.
Yeah.
Nuclear subs down the road.
Yep.
In a matter of years.
In the port.
AUKUS deal, 4 eyes, is it, or 5 eyes?
5 eyes.
Like, you're seeing this stuff really escalate, and you're seeing that fracture that's always been there. It's just become more obvious between the West and the rest. And, those countries that actually don't really want to get involved in all this stuff.
Yeah.
Always been there. It's maybe more pronounced at the moment because the geopolitical power is shifting, and the political environment in different countries is rapidly changing. And it's no one thought there'd be Brexit. No one thought Trump would get in. Got in. No one thought about COVID. Globalization started to reverse already. Brexit, Trump, globalization reversing, COVID, supply chain problems. Everyone's like, we need to do manufacturing back in our own countries. We can't rely on these other unreliable nation states. We've got to do it all ourselves. Energy, haven't even started on that. Digitization, like hacking, cyber.
Yeah,
we're going into a whole new world now. So no one knows what the future holds, but it's going to. And I think every year it's like, what's the year got in store? It's never been more turbulent. But they say that every year. Does that come to a crescendo? Maybe at some point, or maybe we figured it all out and we're all good. No one knows.
Did you see that the BRIC countries, they're like trying to create their own reserve currency and they're like harboring gold?
Oh, I heard that recently.
Didn't say that.
Yeah, check it out. That's a big move, especially with the US's history with people that try to make new currency reserve. It's interesting. All right, so let's get back to you though and your life and the cool shit you've done. You moved to the Property Council. Tell me, for people listening, what is the Property Council, and why'd you choose that?
Property Council of Australia, national body, exists essentially to ensure that the property, stop bad things happening to organisations that are in the property industry, and ensure that they have the best possible environment to create jobs, communities, and prosperity, economic prosperity, basically for your respective state, the country as a whole. Huge industry. It's I think it's bigger than mining and manufacturing sort of put together, right? So massive industry, a lot of jobs, a massive economic driver, GDP. So at a time where housing affordability, population growth's important, labour shortages, skill shortages, it's a really interesting time to really get involved with the organisation. And so I haven't started yet, but I'm certainly looking forward to sinking my teeth into it, definitely.
Yeah, bet. What's your history that like allowed you to have that job? Like, is property something have gained an extensive knowledge, and how'd you do that?
I think like all Australians, we have a love affair with property, and it's such a big and important asset class for individuals, for families, for institutional investors, etc. Policy has always interested me, hence the Committee for Adelaide role. Committee for Adelaide sector agnostic, Property Council obviously very sector specific. So looking forward to obviously getting more into the weeds, if you like, deeper in depth around what legislation, what policy levers can be pulled to ensure that we can increase housing supply, allow for more affordable housing, because the amount of people you hear say, you know, they're worried about their kids ever being able to afford a place and all that sort of stuff. You don't want society to start pushing and pulling and shredding because you've got the haves and the have-nots. Property plays a big part in that. Planning as well, where all these people are going to live, what's the best amenity that we can create for them. Do we go up? Do we go out? Do we consolidate in medium density? What's the plan around that? Do we build in certain corridors, etc.? Especially in the South Australia lens, it's actually cheaper to rent a place in Melbourne than it is in Adelaide.
Real?
Despite their population growth. Yep, on average.
Well, because we have less houses?
Yep,
Yeah,
less dwellings. Houses, apartments, less dwellings.
Yeah.
Is it? It's actually one part of this whole. Yes, you got housing, but it's also around how can we attract more capital? How can we attract more talent? How can we address labour shortages? How can we unlock supply?
Just quickly, when you say talent, what do you mean by talent? Like as in humans that have skills?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. Defined. How can we do that in a nationally and globally competitive landscape where, you know what, everyone's got the same problem.
Around the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
And everyone's putting their best foot forward to attract that capital and to attract that talent. Well, what are we doing as a state, if I look from a South Australia lens, to have skin in that game, to be a legitimate competitor in that game? Because for the past several decades, we've failed to do that, which has led to less economic stimulus, less properties, lower vacancy rate, higher rents. That's actually a net negative as opposed to growing well in a well-planned way where you've got better infrastructure, better public amenity, better precincts, better movement, better transport, better ways of living, healthier, greener communities. These are some of the things that certainly need to be addressed.
Yeah, it sounds like you've very, very clearly defined like what the current like climate is and what the questions are that need to be answered. What kind of questions have you taken a deep thought about so far and have some preliminary thoughts about, like on how to solve all this?
To be honest, I haven't really had time to do that because, I'm still at the committee as this podcast is being recorded and I'm yet to start there. But, yes, we can talk about housing and social infrastructure, etc. But, these are the people who are investing for the long haul.
As in housing investments.
Or offices.
Yeah.
Or warehouses. Or industrial buildings. Property is not just housing. It's a whole range of asset classes. They build where you live. They operate where you work. They build the office towers. They build the business parks. They build car parks. You got architects that design the stuff. You got service providers. Think of your CBRE or JLL, a Colliers and a Knight Frank. They're maintaining the building or the property. they're not investing 10, 20, 50, $100 million into the state to flip it really quickly and make a quick buck. No. That they're invested, and they want to ensure that, you know what, if I'm going to build an office tower, I'm expecting, or I'm hoping, or I'm believing in, more accurately, the fact that I'll be able to fill that office tower with tenants because people are employed, business is going well, economy is going well, and everyone is better off. So they've got legitimate skin in the game within the state, and obviously within the country more broadly, to see a thriving and robust economy.
Fair. What was the go with the Sofitel? Because they flipped that pretty quickly, didn't they, from building it?
I couldn't tell you.
I thought they sold it.
Who?
Palamo? Is that how you say it? Palomo? Yeah.
Palumbo?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I
I'm
thought it was
not
up for
across
sale.
that specific.
I thought it was like 30 mil they were asking for it.
Don't know, but I'm not across that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Yeah.
What have you done with the property? Do you have houses and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a couple.
How have you gone about, and just from like being a young person perspective, like how did you find getting into the market, and then like what kind of levers did you pull to then get your second or your third or your fourth?
When I went to Turkey, I actually bought a house like via the internet, really, realestate.com.au, within 5 kilometres of the city. Not too big blocks, so it's easy to maintain. Financials stacked up in terms of yield on the rent. Deposit was enough to avoid lender's mortgage, insurance, etc., etc. And I thought, you know what? It's so common for sports people especially to buy a property. Like, it's just what we tend to do, I think. And it's an easy investment in terms of you buy it, someone rents it, you've got it managed by some external, you get your depreciation report, so you're getting some tax benefits, you can negative gear it, it's money in, money out, expenses, interest repayments, etc., rent coming in. It's pretty easy, right? And then once I got comfortable with that, after about the first 12 months, I bought another place.
Did you like refinance?
No. I'd never cross-collateralized the loans. I always held them very completely separate, just in case you ever fall into trouble, especially as a sports person. Never know when your career can finish. You don't want the bank to decide which asset gets sold because you've got loans against all your properties and they're all amalgamated, or you've used equity to access the other one. So I always kept them separate. Then I renovated them, more depreciation, better rent return. Interesting to go through that process.
How did you find going through the
pretty
renovating process? Like, what was that like for you? Because it seems like it's a lot to juggle when doing a renovation.
I guess depends how much you want to do yourself. I didn't do much. I just had people come do it. We just did the inside. It was nothing structural.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, did you need some more water?
No, I still got some.
Yeah,
I'm
cool.
good. So, you know, not like nothing out of the ordinary. Really, sort of. Like in terms of my property journey, nothing. You know, I never bought any commercial stuff or developed apartments or anything like that.
Is that something that you're looking at in the future, you reckon?
No. I think there's a lot of asset classes, and I invested across different asset classes. I didn't want to invest everything in property. I thought, you know, there's other asset classes that also give good returns. So it's always good to be diversified as well. Bearing in mind that property is a great asset class, has been for several years. Just ask any baby boomer who ended up buying a house once upon a time, even if rates were 18%. You know, you got young people with rates of 20% with more money on their credit cards than what those houses used to cost, right? So, very, very, very different lay of the land. And definitely there's some policy levers that could be pulled, I think, to make houses more accessible for younger people or first home buyers.
Like what?
That are beneficial. I mean, in New South Wales, they're looking at giving first home buyers, I think, under $800,000. Don't quote me on that. The opportunity or the choice, more than the opportunity, the choice to choose whether they pay stamp duty or opt in for a land tax. So stamp duty is one of the key reasons transactions don't happen more frequently. You know, if say you bought a house for $500,000, and not only do you have to come up with 20% of that to avoid lender's mortgage insurance, etc., you also need to pay the stamp duty. It might be $20,000 on a $500,000 home. That's $120,000 cash net.
It's a lot to have in hand.
It's a lot to have in hand. And then you have this massive mortgage that you got to put massive, well, relatively speaking, $400,000 in a mortgage that you have to pay, right? So you may look at that house as, you know what, we're only going to be here for 5 years, then we're going to upgrade. So it might be, I don't want to pay the $25,000. I might pay $1,500 a year in land tax, because our plan is in 5 years we want kids and to move to a bigger place. So you know what? That extra $25,000, I can put it towards my deposit, and it actually would make it easier to jump on to actually get a foothold on the ladder. Now, you're always going to have your detractors when it comes to policy, where people say, well, the land tax is for perpetuity. I'm better off paying $25,000 up front, not having to think about it again, than paying $1,500 a year for 30 years.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Fair, yeah. But
if you're in a 5-year context,
it's choice.
Makes sense.
No one's telling you have to do it one way or the other.
Yeah, you just have to pay either way.
and then other people say, and this is one of the major challenges with some of those first home buyer grants and stuff, is that if you give someone an extra $25,000, you know what? It's just a wealth transition from the purchaser to the vendor. Because guess what? All those house prices just went up $25,000, because all your calculations are done on, I can afford an extra $25,000 worth of home. So again, you're always going to have detractors of policy. No one, that's what leadership is. It's not about pleasing everyone. It's about, having some conviction on a certain view, and being successful or otherwise on whether that policy is a net positive or maybe it's a net negative at the end of the day. So,
what do you reckon? Do you reckon that? So I kind of lean towards that the bureaucracy is just like a beast that's just continually growing and needs to be cut in many ways, and that it's kind of ridiculous that we have to keep paying more and more, and there's all these different new taxes and new regulations being put on and on and on over time. Like if you look at like a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50-year frame, and it's just kind of fucked up, and it's leading us towards more being a renter as a human across the board, with all these microtransactions and, these land tax for coming more of a common thing everywhere, and that it's just like taking away the actual inherent value of the original thing, which was like, I want to own this.
I think the challenge in Australia is, and it's not just Australia, but
let's look at Australia,
considering we live here.
Yeah.
The challenge is that shelter, everyone should have shelter.
Yeah.
Let's get real. Like, it's one of the key needs for humans to be happy, healthy, right?
Yeah, for us to be like civilized, for sure.
Key need. You being homeless is no good to nobody. So shelter has become an asset class.
Yeah.
As opposed to
a need. BlackRock.
Right? Yeah. So it's you got negative gearing, you got capital gains tax discount, you got depreciation and other deductions that can be made against it. You've got a shortage of it. You've got a market in which, people land bank. When there's a supply side issue, you need to incentivize organisations to construct things that are commercially viable, and it's become a real asset class. You want to renovate your house, you want this type of stone, you want this type of flooring. It's no longer a need. That is a human right. It's an asset class that some people have a lot of, some people have less of. Institutions are involved, control large segments of the market, and that creates challenges further down the chain. And, we live in this.
I don't really get what you mean in terms of like what the reality of like why that is. I understand people buy a lot, like I understand that bit, but in terms of it coming further down the chain, I understand it on like a supply and demand level, but in terms of like a regulation, taxation, and like what we have to give to the government level, what do you mean?
Well, because it's such a big asset class. So if the value of property in Australia is trillions of dollars. So if you're the government, the only way to raise revenue is to raise taxes or grow the economy. Now, if you want to raise revenue, it would be very, easy is not the right word.
It's like opportunist.
Attractive or like, opportunist. Attractive to say, you know what, that asset class right there, Treasury, can you do some modelling, financial modelling on us raising a tax on that asset class? 0.1%. 0.1% on trillions of dollars. That's a lot of rev. And that's something we need to protect the industry against, because that disincentivizes
everybody.
Exactly. And you ain't fixing supply side if people are disincentivized from building more dwellings, right?
So it hurts it.
It hurts it, 100%. The other side, and it damages the economy, because people, mums and dads, big institutions, etc., will say, well, we'll invest. It's all opportunity cost. I can invest my money here. I can invest it somewhere else. If I'm going to get a better return somewhere else, why would I invest it here? So that can have a negative impact on the economy as well. You have a negative impact on the economy. That doesn't boost supply or economic activity either. So, and you get those ideological disparities between we need to tax more and we're going to get that revenue and redeploy it more efficiently or effectively elsewhere.
The state through history has been known to do that well.
So well. Or we're going to deregulate and let the
free market.
Let the free market reign. They know where to allocate capital as where they'll get the best return. And to do that, we should actually lower the taxes, because then they'll have more money in their pockets that will then be reinvested back into the economy, because we're so much more attractive to invest here with less regulation, lower taxes than elsewhere.
So it sounds like you vibe with that more. And
they're the arguments.
Yeah.
They're the ideological arguments. And we've seen the negatives of both sides of them. Look at crypto, good example. Look at the GFC.
Yeah.
Great example. Where big banks, credit markets, derivatives, free reign, create all this rubbish, bundle it up, resell it. Everyone's making heaps of money. Something falls over, domino effect, bang. And who saves them? Who saves the private corporations?
The government.
The people.
Yes, you're true.
You privatize profits, you socialize deficits. And that's one of the negatives.
Yeah.
The other negative on the other side is, well, it's overregulated, it's overtaxed, money's getting wasted, economy's shrinking, we're less and less competitive, and you get a flight of capital because People aren't, or institutions or investment houses aren't investing here. They're investing elsewhere in less regulated markets with lower tax rates, etc., etc. Mate, they're your battle of ideas. And they ebb and flow, and governments rise and fall on the back of generally its timing, but things being successful policies that have, benefited the majority, or unsuccessful policies which have caused a lot of problems for the majority. And that's the world we live in. It's democracy, my friend.
Dude, you're so pragmatic. You're so pragmatic. I love
Very
it.
good.
I love it. I mean, this is going to sound cringe, but what's your star sign?
Aries.
Aries, all right.
I know nothing about star signs.
I just got friends that are into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know-
Aries,
so I don't know what that
girls.
means.
I don't know Aries guys, but I know Aries girls, and they're fiery. But
I'm
Passionate.
not fiery.
huh?
I'm not fiery.
Yeah, well,
I care,
Yeah, that's a good one.
but I'm very calm.
I care just a lot.
Yeah. No. I care a lot. I'm ready to waste time. But yeah.
Yeah, fair. So what is Committee for Adelaide then, and what have you been doing with that side of your world?
Yeah, so Committee for Adelaide, sector agnostic, advocacy organisation. It's really there to shape the future of Greater Metropolitan Adelaide. So it doesn't have a whole state. Like, we don't do regions. Regional Development Australia is a member. Adelaide Metro. So we would work with them if we were, creating policy that was going to impact the regions in a positive way, obviously. But essentially, it's sector agnostic, so you're not representing any one industry. We have household names as members. We have small enterprises as members, academia, the whole gamut, arts, organisations.
But what do you do?
Everything, and we advocate for greater Metropolitan Adelaide in the sense that we have underperformed here on a number of metrics for decades, and Adelaide still has so much potential. What is required for Adelaide, and when I say Adelaide, I'm not talking CBD, I'm talking Adelaide, to fulfill its potential? How can we attract and retain talent? Young people have been leaving this state, net outflows for decades, right? How can we address that? What's missing?
What do you reckon? Just touch on that first.
I think we lack vibrancy.
How do you solve that?
More people. More people,
catch 22
more
there.
businesses,
Innovation.
innovation, more multiculturalism. You need critical mass to create a good vibe, and you need good planning, because we've all seen what population growth with poor planning is, and that's traffic jams and poor amenities and chasing your tail with infrastructure, etc. I think we're in a unique position where we can plan our growth and actually just grow at the national average. That'd be nice. Failure to do so, we fall further and further behind, and we have less and less influence, especially at a national level. So we become less relevant to other areas, and we then get less than our fair share, because whether we get it or not is immaterial on a national level. So that's really important, and having an inclusive community and culture.
What does that look like?
That looks like a whole range of people feeling welcomed when they get here, feeling welcomed when they are here, safe space, being able to be themselves, regardless of religion, colour, sexual orientation, that they all feel included, that there's a great cultural heritage, cultural mix, whether it's First Nations people, whether it's migrants, and the arts groups do that really well, I feel. And when you talk about vibrancy, think of Mad March.
Yeah, we do very well there.
Imagine that all the time.
It'd be sick.
Young people wouldn't leave.
No.
Give you the hot tip. And
How do we do
and
that?
that's what
then?
we've got to, you need more people. Because
it?
you You need more people in a well-planned state,
Ecosystem.
essentially.
But what kind of planning? Like, we're talking like traffic planning, or what kind of planning are you talking about?
You need a plan. You need a master plan. Where they're going to live,
Yeah, okay.
and what amenity are we going to provide them that allows them, this road can only accommodate X amount of, okay, you know what, we need public transport to that area. Public transport here is a joke. It's a disaster.
It sucks. I wish we didn't get rid of those trams.
Right?
Have you seen
I
like
know.
the full system?
Brother, I know.
Dude,
It's a joke.
So good.
So it's hard to justify significant infrastructure spend if the per capita spend is super high. So if there's only 100 people using the tram and the tram costs $100 million to build, guess what? We ain't building that tram.
No.
But if there's more people, doesn't mean there's more cars. If the public transport system's actually good, how do you incentivize people to use public transport rather than their private car?
Make it
et cetera,
good.
et cetera.
Make it cheap.
That's what I say. Exactly. Make it convenient, make it cheap, make it affordable, make it...
I wish we just got a bunch of the old ones like Melbourne did, because I think we've got yards full of our old ones
Mate,
decommissioned. Imagine bringing them back.
So
How vibey would that be?
exactly. So and the
Solar
other
panel on top.
the other challenge we have is we've got the oldest median age population in mainland Australia,
Yeah.
and we've got the fastest aging population in Australia.
Yeah, some good businesses to buy coming up.
Yeah.
But who's going to buy them before the young guys have gone? So
Yeah, exactly.
it's also one of that where there's some with failure for South Australia to address these challenges will lead to inability for governments to actually fund what everyone's expecting them to fund.
And how are we going?
Hospitals, etc. So I think the Federal Treasurer came out the other day talking about population growth and how important it is, because on the back of COVID, we're going to be 480,000 people short in 10 years' time than what we otherwise would have been, even though they've raised the migration cap. We're going to be an older nation than what we would have been. And the stat that really stood out to me is that he was saying years ago there was one working person for every 4 retirees.
Oh, in terms of how much they're making.
As in, someone's in employment.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Someone's in employment paying tax is a net taxpayer.
Yeah.
V 4 people who
Are relying on that money.
Who are relying on that money.
Hectic.
And on this trajectory, we're moving to 1 in 7. South Australia's
1 in
stats
7?
are
Yeah.
worse. That's the national stat.
Dude, we need to start breeding.
Not only
How
that,
many you have?
I've already got 2. I'm done.
You're done. No, mate, you did 5.
But and that's right?
Need a system.
The birth rate is diminishing.
Yeah.
So Australians aren't reproducing at a quick enough rate than the amount that are or leaving or passing away.
Why do you think that is?
It's just the way the world is today.
Yeah, but why do you think that is? Why do you think the world is
Everything
not
moves.
fucking?
Everything moves quicker. People are. Everything moves quicker. It's everything's more expensive. Both parents need to work to make ends meet. All these challenges.
That's such a stitch up, isn't it?
Well,
we
it
went
is a
so
stitch up.
long in society where we could afford one human working in the family and everybody
yeah.
be sorted.
And migrants actually contribute like $184,000 more, or a net $184,000 contribution to Australia. Australians take away 85,000
Wait, why? How?
because
Women.
they're higher paid
Yeah,
on
okay.
average.
Oh, because we're getting good migrants.
Migrants are
Yeah,
high
yeah,
paid
yeah.
on average. They
High
work.
skilled.
They work longer, harder. They do jobs that Aussies otherwise don't want to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So they come at a younger age. They come at childbearing age. They're forming families, right? So they have been not the reason, but the key reason that we've had economic prosperity the way we have. It's not us guys doing something miraculous.
No, we're getting in skilled internationals.
We're getting skilled internationals. We're doing our part. We're getting skilled internationals. You know, we've done a relatively good job on the multiculturalism front. So you got diasporas from all over the world coming here, etc. The challenge now that federal government's finding is the competition for those people on the back of COVID now is significant. And the shine of Australia has gone. Because why? We locked our people down.
Yeah.
We basically told migrants to leave.
Yeah.
Those that stayed didn't get JobKeeper. Like, we locked people out. We locked people in. You know what? I'm going to go to Canada or the UK or the USA. What about Australia? Yeah, maybe.
No, your beaches are nice, but I don't want to be locked in my house for 270 days.
Whereas in the past, it was close to the very top of the list.
Yeah, it did.
Right?
Like the carefree nation.
Exactly.
I've had a lot of international students ask me, like, because, you know, they can't work the amount of hours they want. And also them not working, then they got to pay their rent. Some of them don't have financial support. And then because they're not theoretically taxpayers or anything with their passport, the PR, life's hard. So they have to leave. Yeah.
Yep. So some challenges that obviously the Committee for Adelaide's looking to address. We take a longer term view, you know, in 10 years, what are we trying to see?
What kind of things were you guys like?
Population growth was massive.
Yeah. Like how were you looking at actioning that specifically to Adelaide though?
So what we're saying is, so Adelaide is classified as a regional
city.
It's classified as regional. So Adelaide, Perth, Gold Coast, we're regional. Quicker pathway to PR, permanent residency. But the challenge we have is keeping people. So people come here and then they leave. Done my time. Let's go to Sydney, Melbourne.
Yeah, where there's buzzing.
So it's really about that vibrancy piece. It's about how can we keep more talent here? How can we...
North-South train system.
North-South train system? Maybe.
What about the South Road project?
Yeah, but that's cars. That means because all the internationals I've talked to, especially like Brazilians and stuff, they come in, they're like, dude, we need a car here.
Yeah.
We need to buy like a car. And cars aren't cheap. So it's like, it's a whole nother thing. It's like, fuck.
In Melbourne,
we want to go to a nice beach.
You don't need a car.
You don't need a car. Like, and we have so many nice beaches that you can't get to by public transport easily.
No.
Like, you can't go to Port Wollonga. You can't go to
so many other beaches.
You can't go to like Selix.
Can you go to Henley?
Yeah.
How?
Oh no, you can't even go to Henley.
Well, you get to the Grange. I think Grange, there's a station there.
There might be a bus from there, but
at Grange it stops. Then you'd have to do a bit of a walk.
Yeah.
Right, like I want to take it to the sand. Fair enough. Yeah. But like the network is very isolated.
You're talking Grange or Glenelg?
No,
the train to
Glenelg
Grange.
you can get there.
Yeah. You saying Grange has one too?
There's a train to Grange.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. But like, it's
not enough.
It's not a legitimate network.
Yeah.
You're either living on it, as in close proximity, and you bother to use it, or it's completely out of the question. Like, it needs to be more, like you said, it needs to be affordable, it needs to be accessible, and easy to use.
Yeah. What do you reckon? Actually, have you looked at this? Is the bullet trains? Like, why doesn't Australia have any bullet trains?
I think they're doing that Sydney to Newcastle. I'm pretty sure.
Sydney to Newcastle. Oh yeah.
It's critical mass. Enough people will use it to justify the spend. You could have a bullet train from, I don't know, the city to the hills.
Imagine Sydney, Melbourne to Adelaide.
That'd be good too.
Or Sydney, Melbourne,
the other challenge Australia has is it's so vast.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah,
so like,
it's not Japan.
No. So the infrastructure spend
is huge
per kilometre versus person per square kilometre. It's massive.
Yeah, it's huge.
You know, in Japan, small, proximity, close, heaps of people. You're getting bang for your buck on an infrastructure spend in Japan, right?
Yeah.
Here it's a little bit trickier, to be fair, to governments and stuff.
I'm quite interested in the social aspect, like how is a organisation like Committee for Adelaide or any experiences you've had recently, how are those helping with the social aspect for the people to then be able to, whether it's using infrastructure, whether it's contributing per capita, like what social steps are being taken?
When you say social, do you mean just supporting people?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we run a program called Adelaide Connected, which obviously connects migrants essentially with like-minded individuals. So generally other migrants. And when I say migrants, they might have come from overseas, they might have come from interstate, might have come from here, left for a decade or two and then returned. So we connect them with each other. We connect them with our members who are potential employers, obviously, and try to really break down the barriers that a lot of them face when they get here. Adelaide is a very connected place, and that's a bit of a double-edged sword in the sense that if you're in, and you're generally looked after. If you're from the outside, then very hard to crack in.
No, I see. No, that's good. Yeah, that's good. It's good because we're growing up here as a migrant, refugee. There wasn't a lot.
Well, there's not a lot of support.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Government tries to support however it can, but big beast that requires that, like for this sort of stuff, you need to be a bit more nimble. Yeah. Very hard for them to do that. And organisations like ours are trying to pick up some of that slack. That's probably not the right term, but he's trying to add added support in order to address some of those challenges. So we did we've done a number of migration consultation roundtables where we really extrapolate from people who have gone through the process and have actual context knowledge. They've felt it, they've lived it, they've breathed it around what were the challenges, what would make it easier, and then we go and advocate to government for some of those changes to be implemented.
Yeah. During the soccer FIFA World Cup, Football Australia, they mentioned that there's going to be a big shift in the football world. What does sport give for the community, you reckon?
Breaks down barriers and it gives people a sense of belonging very quickly.
Oh yeah.
Network, the ability to meet people. So I think for migrants, a lot of migrants who come here, they all know soccer.
Yeah.
They all know football.
Facts.
They might not know the anthem. They might not know the language, but they know football. So for them to be connected with or have their kid playing at or be part of a community, a football club where parents might be in the canteen or meet other parents who might be potential employers. Kid has friends, very global. It is the global game. So kids from all different walks of life, from all parts of the world. It's a really great microcosm of Greater Australia and the best of Australia, and a great opportunity, not just for kids to make friends that may not necessarily go to their school, not just a great way for parents to meet other people and feel more welcomed and supported once they're here, but also a great way to make friends and to learn about life. You win some games, you feel great. You lose some games, you got to pick yourself back up again. You know, the referee makes the wrong call, it's unfair, life's unfair. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the emotions of that? It's all that learning that comes with the game, allows you to see the city in terms of, and I know when I say city, people think north, south, east, west, terrace, but
great.
Gawler to Noarlunga, it gives you the opportunity to really get around and all that sort of stuff. That's what that sport does for so millions of Australians every year.
Yeah, it's like AFL almost is like an exclusionary kind of like national sport in terms of us for being that multicultural, hey, everybody come here. While it is also a beacon of like, oh, that's their sport, that's cool, that's an interesting, but that's more of a tourist thing as opposed to a let's come and live here thing. Don't
know. What I would say is AFL is more accessible than football, soccer.
Oh, for sure.
In the sense that
look where the games are. Look where the games are.
Yeah, but it's also cheaper. So if you're a kid playing, It's cheaper to play soccer in this country. Is very expensive.
Is that because I thought soccer is the most played games by kids though.
It is.
Why is it more expensive? And why is it more expensive? That doesn't make sense.
That's a question for Football Australia.
No.
Oh no, sorry.
Look, it's not Football Australia. I think Football Australia get, I don't know, $13 out of each registration fee.
Oh, okay.
Football South Australia might get $30 out of every registration fee. All the rest of the money goes to clubs.
Oh, so it's the clubs. Okay.
Yeah. And how much does it cost to register?
Oh,
a lot,
man.
bro.
Like 200 bucks?
Hundreds, no.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
My son plays under 9s, 1,300.
Yeah.
What?
That's
Up
like
front.
$1,300.
bare minimum, man. It's crazy.
Fuck.
Under 8s. Gets more expensive after that.
Dude.
I had to stop playing
So-
soccer.
That's like another tuition. That is another tuition.
So when you're a migrant or God forbid you're a refugee and you rock up here and the only thing you know of
Soccer.
is soccer. And you're
it's
like,
like,
well,
yeah,
I
I
got to
wanna play
do
on
it
the
as I don't have
weekend.
friends.
and it's like 30, your parents are going to look at it and be like, well, hey, we came here for you to be a doctor, dentist, lawyer, academically strong.
Go
We
do
ain't
that.
coming here for you to kick a ball and chase the dreams of everyone else in our home country that never ever made it. So, and by the way, you got 2 brothers or you got 2 sisters or whatever, 1,300 plus 1,300, you know what? No, we're not playing. And that's what happens. And they can go play footy for 50, 100, 200 bucks.
That even happened to Aware. That's his same experience.
Oh, real? And is that just because of clubs?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Fucking they must be raking it in. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
No wonder businesses go to sports clubs for fucking sponsoring.
It's like, so what you say about, you know, it's more accessible or it's, lower barrier to entry than AFL. I think some people have a different opinion.
I mean, that'd make a difference though, right? In terms of like just embracing people living together. Because sport is, you know, huge. We all played sport growing up. If you didn't, you're a fucking dweeb. It's true. I love art. I love art too. But if you don't play any sport, as like, especially as a guy, like, what are you doing?
No, I think guys, girls, same. But I'd strongly encourage people to be physically
look at
active.
you being all PC about it, motherfucker.
Diplomatic.
Diplomatic. All right. Yeah, cool. Yeah, 5 minutes. No worries. We can talk, man. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
You can say you need to go. It's all right. This is like, there's no limit.
I'm enjoying this though.
Oh, I'm glad,
thanks.
man.
It's been cool.
Glad,
Dude,
yeah.
it's been a pleasure to have
It's
you
been
on.
good.
You're a cool guy.
Yeah.
Thanks, bro.
Because we haven't talked. We had a very small chat before.
Very
so it's
quick
like,
chat. Yeah. So this is good.
No, it's good, man. I like what you're up to. I like how you think. You know, you've got like this. Let me just identify all the viewpoints. It's like your big. It's like you'd be very good at like the stakeholder theory. It's like, what is it? If I'm going to develop a building, we had Michael Barrett-Gwyneth on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know him. Yeah.
And he was going through stakeholder theory with us. And like, when I make a building, I go, all right, I can either fight against all the stakeholders, like the council, like the energy people, or I could go, what would you need for us when we're doing this building?
That's a good approach.
And I was like, dude, that does make sense. Why make people that you have to deal with your enemy? Like they're just trying to do their job too.
That is not a good approach. So yeah. So what I think it's the global experience I've had. I can understand why people think differently. I can understand how people get influenced and manipulated from time to time. I mean, I've lived in countries that are very different to Australia. I'm not the expat that came, yeah, I did 4 years in London and then 3 in New York. It's
not the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different lifestyle, but not overly different.
No.
So, Turkey, China, South Korea, Indonesia, born in the States, growing up, I lived in the Gold Coast, I lived in Sydney.
Oh, you lived in Goldie?
Yeah,
because you played for the
Gold Coast United.
Yeah.
Clive Palmer owned it. So another interesting
Did you know him? Did you meet him? And hang
all
out?
the time. He was always around.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, very, I wouldn't say hands-on, but very present owner of the club.
Cool guy? Like,
Smart guy.
yeah?
Yeah. More eccentric now than he was in 2011 when I was there, or in second half of 2010, early 2011 when I was there. Smart guy, man.
In what way? Like when you
Savvy.
just casually,
businessman.
like just witty and all that, or
More savvy businessman, knows how to get a deal done.
and like you saw that when you were playing for the club. Was he doing deals? Oh yeah, I guess he owns it, right? So
I think
why wouldn't he?
For me, the most interesting thing, I don't even know if he'd remember this, but he'd definitely remember this part when the mining resource rent tax was not going to happen, and then can't remember who was Prime Minister at the time. I think it was Gillard. She said there wouldn't be one. Then she implemented one, and he was just like, that person will not be Prime Minister much longer.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, and I was like, it was like at a team barbecue.
Yeah.
Real off the cuff. And he always said,
just outlandish stuff, yeah.
and I was like, okay. But I was like, I don't think he's joking.
No, he wouldn't be.
And then the miners all got together and did that massive ad campaign. Before you know it, Kevin Rudd was Prime Minister again.
Boom.
Wow.
I was like, see? I was like, whoa.
Boom.
That's influence.
That's
so interesting things like that you otherwise not interacting with these people,
Yeah.
The Lowy family when they were, you had Frank Lowy as chairman of FFA, then Stephen Lowy following him, guys like David Gallup at the time. I was on the PFA, which is the Players Union executive, so negotiating collective bargaining agreements with the likes of those guys. Really interesting learnings, right? Like they are smart, successful, etc., etc., etc. And we had great outcomes in those negotiating collective bargaining agreements. And
what's
when you
a
talk about
collective?
stakeholder management, I'm fighting for the players, but I understand you have to run a business, but we need a respect here where without us there's no product, understanding without the administrators there's also no competition for us to showcase the product. And I think the fact that I have very good relations with players, present, past, with administrators, with different stakeholders within and they weren't always easy meetings, and I wasn't in all of them, but attending a number of them. I think that's a skill where you're not burning bridges to get your outcome. You're getting outcomes that, and no one's ever fully satisfied, probably means you got a pretty good outcome.
Yeah.
They're not happy. You're not overly happy, but you're happy with elements of it. They're probably happy with elements of it. Everyone shakes hands, understand it's part of the process, and carries on because it's a symbiotic relationship. Those sort of learnings were really important for me to have that mindset around how do we all achieve the best possible outcome, and without compromising your integrity or your values.
Wow. And did it come through just having that understanding of everybody's perspective and taking the time to understand their perspective?
And not being ideological and digging your heels in and playing games and all that sort of stuff. You just got to negotiate in good faith and honestly.
But how'd you make sure that you, at the same time, didn't also get taken for a trip and lose your side?
Well, because you're not there by yourself, number one. You've got other players, executives from the organisation and board members as well, many of which have a business background. So very well supported, people who've done it before time and time again, so very experienced. You go in knowing what you want because you discuss with your immediate stakeholder, the players, in this instance, what the outcome they want is. What should this is where we think the salary cap should be, commensurate to what the TV rights is. So you look at what the other sports get and you try to ensure that you get a fair share, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, okay, and then you reach somewhere around there.
You're not trying to overreach. You're not trying to get ripped off. You just want a fair share.
Do you do the old start higher, go lower? Is that a tried and true that even works everywhere? Or
I don't think that works everywhere. I think there's a place for it, maybe in a car yard. But I don't like negotiating that way. It's not my sort of style, although it works in Bali.
It does work in Bali, definitely.
But yeah,
what's your style? Just go there with this is what we want.
I think you've got to be able to give a little and get a little. I mean, it's not always monetary. There could be other things as well. Extra leave, more flexibility, better conditions, better facilities when you think sport, better regulation in terms of what clubs are required to provide. All costs money, but it doesn't have to be a direct transfer of funds from organisation to player or players. It could be the investing in the game and the infrastructure that makes your workplace better. So yeah, it's not as simple as we want our salary cap to go up 10%. We really want to go up 5%. Let's start at 10%, and then if they get it to 5%, they feel like they've won. But that's all we wanted in the end anyway. It's not that simple. It's not like that.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for
having me. Appreciate you, Bruce.
You're a good man.
You are too.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Pleasure.
Cheers.
And we are off.
That's it.
Yeah.